Chapter 13. Many meetings, Frodo woke and found himself lying in bed. At first, he thought he had overslept after a long, unpleasant dream that still hovered in his mind. Or perhaps he was ill. But the ceiling looked unfamiliar. It was flat, crossed with dark carved beams. He lay still for a while, watching the patterns of sunlight on the wall and listening to the sound of falling water. "I'm here, and what time is it?" he said aloud to the ceiling. "In the house of Elrond, and it is 10 o'clock in the morning," a voice answered. "It is the morning of the 24th of October, if you want to know." "Gandalf!" cried Frodo, sitting up. The old wizard was sitting there in a chair by the open window. "Yes," he said, "it is I, and it's lucky that you are here too." "After all the foolish things you've done since you left home," Frodo lay back again. He felt so comfortable and peaceful that he did not want to argue, and besides, he did not think he would win if he tried. Now he was fully awake, and the memory of his journey returned to him. The ill-fated shortcut through the old forest, the accident at the prancing pony, and the mad moment when he had put on the ring in the dell below Weathertop. While he was thinking about all these things and trying in vain to recall what had happened when he reached Rivendell, there was a long silence, broken only by the soft puffing of Gandalf's pipe as he blew white smoke rings out of the window. "Where's Sam?" Frodo asked at last. "And are the others all right?" "Yes, they are all safe and sound," Gandalf answered. "Sam was here until I sent him off to get some sleep about half an hour ago." "What happened at the ford?" Frodo said. "Everything there is so hazy, and it still seems that way." "Yes," said Gandalf. "You were beginning to fade. In the end, the wound had almost overcome you. Another few hours, and we could have done nothing for you. But there is a power in you, dear hobbit, that few have ever possessed. You showed it even in the Barrow Downs. That was a dangerous moment, the most perilous of all. I only wish you could have resisted at Weathertop." "You seem to know a great deal already," said Frodo. "I never told anyone about what happened in the Barrow." "It was terrible at first, and then, well, other things happened afterward." "How did you find out?" "You talked quite a bit in your sleep, Frodo," said Gandalf gently, "and it is not very difficult for me to read your mind and memory. But don't worry. When I said foolish, I didn't mean it harshly. I think very well of you and of the others too. To have come so far through so many dangers while carrying the ring, that was no small feat. We never could have done it without Strider," said Frodo. "But we needed you, Gandalf." "I didn't know what to do without you." "I was delayed," said Gandalf, "and that nearly proved our undoing. Yet perhaps in the end it was for the best. Please tell me what happened. All in good time. You are not yet ready to talk or think too much today. Elrond's orders." "But talking will stop me from brooding," said Frodo. "I need to know what really happened, and there are so many things I don't understand. Why were you late? At least tell me that." "You will soon hear all that you wish," said Gandalf. "There will be a council as soon as you are strong enough. For now I can only say that I was held captive." "You?" cried Frodo. "Yes, I, Gandalf the Grey," said the wizard solemnly. "There are many powers in this world, for good and for evil. Some are greater than I am. I was not strong enough to withstand them. But my time will come. The sorcerer of Morgul and his Black Riders are abroad again. War is being prepared." "Then you knew about the Black Riders before I met them?" "Yes, I knew them. I once told you of them, the Ringwraiths, the 9 servants of the Lord of the Rings. But I did not know they had returned. Otherwise I would never have let you wander. I learned of them only after I left you in June. But that tale must wait. For now we have escaped peril thanks to Aragorn." "Yes," said Frodo, "Strider saved us. But at first I was afraid of him. Sam never trusted him at all, not until we met Glorfindel." Gandalf smiled. "I have heard all about Sam," he said. "He has no more doubts now." "That's good," said Frodo, "for I've grown very fond of Strider. Well, fond isn't quite the right word. I mean, he has become very dear to me." though he is strange and sometimes rather grim. In fact, he often reminds me of you. I've never known any of the big people like him. I always thought they were large and rather silly like old Butterbur, or else stupid and mean like Bill Ferny. But in the Shire, we don't really know much about men. Except perhaps those in Bree. You don't know much about them even then. If you think old Barlaman is stupid, said Gandalf. He's wise enough in his own way. He thinks less than he talks, and slower. But he can see through a brick wall in time, as they say in Bree. But there are still a few men left in Middle-earth like Aragorn, son of Arathorn. The race of the kings from beyond the sea is nearly gone. Perhaps this War of the Ring will be their last adventure. Do you really mean that Strider is one of the ancient kings? Said Frodo in amazement. I thought they were all long dead. I thought he was only a ranger. Only a ranger, cried Gandalf. My dear Frodo, the Rangers are but the remnants of the great men of the North, the men of the West. Once they aided me, and I shall need their help again in the days to come. For though we have reached Rivendell, the ring is not yet at rest. I suppose not, said Frodo. But until now I've only thought about getting here, and I hope that I need go no further. Rest would be wonderful. I've been on the road for a month, and that seems quite enough. He was silent for a while, then said, I've been counting the days, and I can't make out how it is the 24th. It ought to be the 21st. We reached the ford on the 20th. You should talk less and think more, said Gandalf. How is your shoulder and side? I don't know, said Frodo. They don't feel at all. That's an improvement, I suppose, but he tried moving. I can move my arm. Yes, it's alive again. It's not cold any more, he added, touching his left arm with his right. Good, said Gandalf. You are healing fast. You'll soon be up and about. Elrond has tended you. He has cared for you for days since you were brought here. Days? Said Frodo. Yes, 4 nights and 3 days to be exact. The elves brought you here from the place you did not expect to reach. We were all terribly worried, and Sam would not leave your side day or night, except to run errands. Elrond is a master of healing, but the weapons of our enemy are dreadful. To tell you the truth, I had little hope, for I suspected that some fragment of the blade still lay hidden in your closed wound. But it was found only last night. Elrond removed a tiny splinter. It had been buried deep, working inward. Frodo shuddered, remembering the evil knife with the blade inscribed with a rune which had vanished in Strider's hands. Do not worry, said Gandalf. It is all over now. The wound is healing, and it seems that hobbits are tough creatures to fade away. I have known mighty warriors of men who succumbed quickly to a shard of the very blade you carried for 17 days. What were they trying to do to me? Frodo asked. Those Black Riders, what were they after? They tried to pierce your heart with a Morgul knife still lodged in the wound. Had they succeeded, you would have become like them, only weaker and under their command. You would have become a wraith, enslaved to the Dark Lord. And he would have tormented you to wrest the ring from you, if there can be any torment greater than seeing it in his hands. Thank goodness I didn't realize how terrible the danger was, said Frodo faintly. Of course I was frightened to death, but if I'd known more, I think I should hardly have dared to move. It's wonderful that I escaped. Yes, fortune or fate helped you, said Gandalf, if not courage. For your heart was untouched, though your shoulder was pierced, and because you resisted to the end. It was perilously close, though. You were in deadly danger when you put on the ring, for you were half in the wraith world then, and they could have seized you. You could see them, and they could see you. I know, said Frodo. They were terrible to look upon. But why could we all see their horses? Because they are real horses. Just as the black robes are real garments the wraiths wear to give shape to their nothingness when they have dealings with the living. Then how could such horses endure their riders? Everything else fled from them, even Glorfindel's horse. The dogs howled, and the geese screamed at their coming, because those horses were born and bred to serve the Dark Lord in Mordor. Not all his servants and creatures are wraiths. There are the orcs and the trolls, the wargs and werewolves, and there are still many men, warriors and kings, who are alive and walk under the sun, yet serve him. His power grows daily. What about Rivendell and the elves? Is Rivendell safe? For now, yes, until all other places fall. The elves may fear the Dark Lord and may flee before him, but they will never serve him. And here, in Rivendell, are some of his greatest foes. The wise elves, the lords of the Eldar from beyond the furthest seas. They do not fear the ring-wraiths, for those who have dwelt in the blessed realm have lived in both worlds and possess great power to resist the seen and the unseen. I think I saw a white figure that shone and did not fade like the others. Was that Glorfindel? Yes, you saw him at the ford, one of the mighty of the firstborn. He is a lord of elves of the house of princes. Indeed, in Rivendell there is a power to withstand the might of Mordor for a while, and no other power remains anywhere. There is a power of another kind in the Shire. But all such places will soon become islands besieged if things go as they are planned. The Dark Lord will put forth all his strength. We must still, he said suddenly, standing up and raising his chin while his beard bristled like wire, keep our courage. You will soon be well again if I don't talk you to death first. You are in Rivendell and you need worry about nothing for the present. I have no courage left to keep, said Frodo, but I am not worried now. Just tell me news of my friends and what became of the ford, as I've asked you so many times, and I'll be content. Then I think I'll have another sleep, but I can't close my eyes till you've told me everything. Gandalf moved the chair closer to the bed and looked intently at Frodo. His face had regained its colour, and his eyes shone, full of attention. He smiled, and it seemed somewhat unusual to him. But in the wizard's eyes, even such a small change made him feel enlightened, particularly about the left arm lying on the cover. Still have to wait, Gandalf said to himself. He has not yet reached the halfway point, and what he will ultimately become, even Elrond cannot say. I think it will not be to become a wraith. He may become a cup full of light for eyes that can see what is possible. Dear Uncle Bilbo, Frodo said sleepily. I wonder where he is. I wish he were here to hear all this. It would surely make him laugh. The cow leaps to the moon, and the poor giant demon. And with those words, he quickly fell asleep. Now Frodo was safe in the last homely house east of the sea. This house, as Bilbo had long told, was a perfect home. Whether you liked eating or sleeping, telling stories or singing or simply sitting and thinking, or a harmonious mix of these, the purity here would be a remedy for fatigue, fear, or sorrow. As evening fell, Frodo woke again, finding that he no longer felt the need to rest or sleep, but instead craved food and drink and then perhaps singing and storytelling. He got out of bed and saw that his arm was nearly as useful as it had been before. He changed into a clean set of green clothes laid out for him, which fit him wonderfully. Looking in the mirror, he was startled to see a much thinner image than he remembered. It resembled in a particular way the young relative of Bilbo, who had once wandered with his uncle in the Shire. His eyes looked contemplative. Yes, I have seen something since the last time I looked through the lenses, he said to his reflection. But now it is time for a merry meeting. He reached out and whistled a note. At that moment, there was a knock at the door, and Sam entered. He rushed to Frodo and took hold of his left arm, embarrassed and shy. He gently tapped it, then blushed and quickly turned away. "Hello, Sam," Frodo said. "It's warm now," Sam said. "I mean your arm, Master Frodo. It was ice cold for many long nights. But now it's a joy," he exclaimed, spinning around with bright eyes and dancing on the floor. "It's time to see you stand and be yourself again, Master. Gandalf sent me to see if you were ready to go downstairs, and I think he was joking." "I'm ready," Frodo said. Let's go and meet the others in the company. Let me lead you to them, master, Sam said. This is a large house and very special. There's always something to explore. And you never know what you'll find around a corner.
And the elves too, master.
The elves here be, and then other elves there. Some are like kings, majestic and radiant, and others cheerful as children.
And the music and songs, I haven't had the time or mind to listen much since we arrived.
But I know a few places here. I know what you have done, Sam, Frodo said, taking his hand. But tonight you shall be merry and listen to joy from your heart.
Come on, lead me to the corners of the house.
Sam led him along many paths, down many steps, and out to a high garden on a sloping riverside. He saw his friend sitting in an archway by the edge of the house, looking east. Darkness had fallen on the valley below, but light still touched the surfaces of distant mountain peaks above. The weather was warm. The sound of flowing and falling water echoed, and the evening carried a faint scent of trees and flowers, as if summer still lingered in Elrond's garden. "Hooray!" Pippin shouted, calling out.
Our noble cousin is here. Make way for Frodo, Lord of the Ring.
"Shush!" Gandalf said from the shadows behind the archway. "The demon will not enter this valley, but we should never speak of them. The Lord of the Ring is not Frodo, but the master of the Dark Tower of Mordor, whose power once again exceeds the world." We sit in the fortress.
Outside darkness spreads. Gandalf has said many cheerful things like that, Pippin said.
He thinks I need to be kept in order. But it seems impossible, to feel sad or despair here.
I feel I could sing if only I knew a fitting song for the occasion. I feel like singing too, Frodo laughed.
Though at this moment I feel more like eating and drinking. Your craving will be quickly satisfied, Pippin said. You'll see your familiar mischief appear right in time for the meal. More than a meal.
A feast,
Merry said. As soon as Gandalf said you were well again, all preparations began. He had just finished speaking when they were all summoned to the hall by many ringing bells. The hall in Elrond's house was filled with people, mostly elves, though a few guests of other races remained. Elrond, as usual, sat in a great chair at the end of the long table on a raised dais. Beside him on one side was Glorfindel, and on the other Gandalf. Frodo looked at them in awe, for he had never seen Elrond, who had been spoken of in many tales, and as they sat to the right and left of him, Glorfindel and Gandalf, whom he thought he knew fairly well, now appeared as noble and powerful lords. Gandalf's stature was lower than the other two, but his long white hair, sweeping silver beard, and broad shoulders made him look like a wise king of ancient legend. On his stern face, beneath snow-white eyebrows, his black eyes could flare suddenly like fire. Glorfindel was tall and straight. His hair gleamed gold, his face handsome, youthful, brave, and joyful. His eyes bright and sharp, his voice musical. The experience in his brow and his hands full of strength. Elrond's face was ageless, neither old nor young, though it had been recorded in countless memories of joys and sorrows. His hair was black as twilight, with a silver circlet above. His eyes grey as a clear evening with a light like that of stars. He seemed as venerable as a king who had ruled through many winters, yet vigorous as a seasoned warrior. He was Lord of Rivendell and a great figure among both elves and men. In the middle of the table, opposite 8 woven tapestries on the wall, was a chair under a canopy where a beautiful lady sat watching, appearing so feminine and Elrond-like that Frodo guessed she must be a very close relative. She looked youthful, though she had perhaps lived long. Her black braided hair had not touched grey. Her hands and fair face were flawless and smooth, the starlight reflected in her clear eyes like a cloudless night. Yet she carried the demeanour of a queen, with wisdom and knowledge shining in her gaze as if from years of experience. Above her eyebrows, her head was adorned with a band set with many small shining gems. Her soft grey garment bore no adornment except a silver leaf belt. So Frodo gazed at her, someone very few mortals had ever seen. Arwen, daughter of Elrond, likened to Luthien, returned to Middle-earth. She was called Undomiel, a star, even for her people. She had once lived in her mother's lands for a long time, in Lorien, hidden behind mountains, but had recently returned to Rivendell with her father's house. But her brothers, Elladan and Elrohir, had gone on adventures. They often travelled far with the rangers in the north, never forgetting the hardships of their mother in the Orc stronghold. It was a solitude within a life that Frodo had never seen or imagined before, and he was both astonished and confused to find himself with a seat at Elrond's table among such noble and beautiful beings. Though he had a proper chair, raised on many cushions, he felt very small and wanted to leave, yet the feeling quickly passed. The feast was cheerful, with all the food his hunger could wish for. After a while he could look around and even turn to those beside him. First he sought his friends. Sam had been allowed to stand by, but this time he was told he was an honoured guest. Frodo could now see him sitting with Pippin and Merry at a corner of the table near the dais. He saw no sign of the Strider. Beside Frodo, on his right, was a dwarf with an important air, dressed flamboyantly. His beard was long and branched, nearly as white as his snow-like clothing. He wore a silver belt, and around his neck a silver chain with diamonds. Frodo paused eating and looked at him. "Hello, pleased to meet you," the dwarf said, turning to him. Then he fully stood and bowed. "Glúin at your service," he said, bowing even lower. "Frodo Baggins at your service and your household," Frodo said seriously, raising himself in surprise, sending cushions flying. "May I guess rightly that you are Glúin, one of the 12 companions of the great Thorin Oakenshield?" "Indeed," the dwarf replied, gathering the cushions and courteously helping Frodo back into place. "And I will not ask further, for I have been told you are the relative and foster child of our famous friend Bilbo. Allow me to congratulate you on your recovery." "Thank you very much." Frodo said, "I have heard you have undertaken some very strange adventures," Glúin said. "I am most surprised to know what brought 4 hobbits on such a long journey. Since Bilbo went with us, nothing like this has happened. But perhaps I should not pry too much, for both Elrond and Gandalf seem unwilling to speak of such matters. I think we shall not speak of it, at least not yet," Frodo replied politely. He guessed that even in Elrond's house, the matter of the ring was not a natural topic. And anyway, he wished to keep his troubles to himself for a while. "But I am equally curious," he added, "to know what brought such an important dwarf from afar to the lonely mountain." Glúin looked at him. "If you have not yet heard of it, I think we shall not speak of it for now.
Master Elrond will summon us all soon, I trust, and we will hear much.
There will be many other stories to be told there." They spoke throughout the rest of the meal, but Frodo listened more than he spoke, for news from the Shire, apart from the ring, seemed trivial, distant and unimportant, while Glúin had much to say about events in the northern lands in the wilds. Frodo learned that Grimbeorn the Old, son of Beorn, was now lord of many hardy folk, and their lands lay between the mountains and Mirkwood, with no orc or wolf daring to venture there. "Indeed," Glúin said, "if not for the Beornings, the road from Dale to Rivendell would long have been impassable. They are brave folk, who have always kept the high road and Carrick Pass open. But they charge high tolls," he said with a shake of his head. "And like Beorn of old, they are not overly fond of dwarves. Yet they are trustworthy folk, which is valuable in these days. Nowhere are men friendlier to us than the men of Dale. They are good fellows, the Barding. Bard, the bowman's grandson, led them. Brand, son of Bane, son of Bard. He is a strong king, and his realm now stretches south and east of Esgaroth." "And your people?" Frodo asked. Much to tell, both good and bad, Glúin said. Though it is almost all good news. So far we have been very fortunate, though we have not escaped the darkness of these days. If you truly wish to hear, I will gladly tell you all. But stop me if you grow weary. A dwarf's tongue runs fiercely when speaking of his own affairs, as is often said. So Glúin began a long story about the happenings in the dwarves' kingdom. He was quite pleased to find such a polite listener, for Frodo showed no sign of fatigue or any attempt to change the subject, even though, in truth, he was utterly bewildered by all the names and strange places he had never heard of before. Yet he took great delight in thinking that Dibyn was still the king under the mountain, now old, over 150 years, revered, and immensely wealthy. 7 of the 10 companions who had survived the Battle of the 5 Armies still remained with him: Dwalin, Glúin, Dori, Nori, Bifur, Bofur, and Bombur. Bombur was now so fat that he could not move from the bed to the chair at the table, needing 6 young dwarves to carry him. And what of Balin, Ori, and Oin? Frodo asked. A shadow crossed Glúin's face.
We do not know, he replied.
It is because of Balin that I came to seek the counsel of those living in Rivendell. But tonight let us speak of happier things. Glúin began to speak of his people's labours, telling Frodo about their great works in Dale and under the mountain. We have done well, he said. But in smithing we cannot compare to our forefathers. Many secrets have been lost. We create fine armour and swords, but we cannot recreate the mail and blades forged before the dragon came. Only in mining and building have we surpassed the old days. You should see the waterways in Dale, Frodo, the springs and the lakes. You should see the colourful paved roads, the halls and underground passages with many archways carved like tree trunks, and high foundations with towers upon the slopes. Then you will see that we have not been idle. I shall go and see them if I can, Frodo said. How amazed Bilbo must have been to see all the changes in Smaug's desolation. Glúin looked at Frodo and smiled. You are fond of Bilbo, are you not? He asked. Yes, Frodo replied. I long to meet him more than all the towers and castles in the world. At last the feast drew to a close. Elrond and Arwen rose and descended into the hall, with everyone following in order. The doors opened again, and they crossed a broad passage through other doors into a further hall. There were no tables here, but a bright fire burned in a large hearth set between 2 columns. Frodo found himself speaking with Gandalf. This is the fire hall, the wizard said. Here you will hear many songs and stories, if you can stay awake. But, except on special days, this place is always empty and quiet, and people come here for a little peace and thought. There is always a fire burning all year round, but very little other light. As Elrond entered and went to his seat, the wandering elves began to produce sweet music. The fire grew bright, and Frodo happily looked at the beautiful faces gathered. The yellow flames flickered above them, lighting their hair. Suddenly he noticed, not far from the corner of the fire, a small dark figure sitting in a high-backed chair, leaning against a pillar. Beside him on the floor were a cup of water and some bread. Frodo wondered if he were ill, if one could be ill in Rivendell, and therefore unable to attend the feast. His head seemed bowed to his chest in sleep, and a dark cloak hung over his face. Elrond came and stood beside the silent figure. "Awake, little master," he said, smiling. Then, turning to Frodo, he waved him over. "Now at last, what you have long wished for has come, Frodo," he said. "This is the friend you have always longed for." The dark figure lifted his head, revealing his face. "Uncle Bilbo!" Frodo exclaimed, rushing forward. "Hello, my little Frodo!" Bilbo said, "At last you are here."
I hoped you would make it.
Now. So this whole feast is in your honor, I hear. I hope you have enjoyed it? Why are you here? Frodo cried. And why was I not allowed to see you before?
Because you were sleeping. I have watched over you many times. I sat beside you each day with Sam, but I did not come to the feast for there were many things going on. And I had other matters to attend. What have you been doing? Oh, sitting and thinking.
Nowadays, I do quite a lot, and this is the best place to do it, as a rule. Wake up, come now, he said, winking at Elrond. The flickering light shone, and Frodo saw no sign of drowsiness at all.
Awake, I have not slept, Master Elrond.
If you wish to know, you all left the feast quite early, disturbing me while I was finishing a song. I was composing a few lines, thinking of them. But now I doubt I can finish. Difficult to sing when all ideas have been wiped from my mind. I shall ask my Dunedain friend to help me.
Where is he?
Elrond smiled. You shall find him, he said. And then you two will go into a corner to finish your work, and we shall hear it and judge it before the night ends. Messengers were immediately sent to find Bilbo's friend, though no one knew where he was or why he had not attended the feast. Meanwhile, Frodo and Bilbo sat together, and Sam quickly chose a spot beside them. They spoke softly, the joy and music of the hall resounding around them. Bilbo did not speak much of himself. Since leaving Hobbiton, he had wandered aimlessly, along the road or into the countryside, yet he always seemed drawn to Rivendell. I have come here with little adventure, he said, and after resting, I travelled with the dwarves to Dale. That was my final journey.
I shall wander no more. Old Balin has passed.
Then I returned here, and I have been here. I have accomplished some things.
I have added to my book.
And of course, I have composed a few songs. Sometimes they are sung, just to please me, I think, for of course they are not truly enough for Rivendell.
And I listened and thought,
time seems not to pass here, that's all. A most special place. You have heard all manner of news, from the mountains and beyond the south, but almost none from the Shire. You sought news of the ring, of course. Gandalf often came here, but he said little, and in recent years was even closer. Dunedain told me more.
I had no idea my ring could cause so much trouble.
Alas, Gandalf did not discover this sooner. I could have brought it here with me without much trouble. I thought many times of returning to Hobbiton because of this. But I am old, and they would not let me go. I wished to speak to Gandalf and Elrond. It seems they feared the enemy would hunt me and make minced meat of me if he found me wandering the wilds. Then Gandalf said, "The ring is past, Bilbo. It is no longer good for you or for others, if you intend to meddle with it again." Peculiar words of warning, typical of Gandalf. But he said he was watching over your nephew, so you should let things be. He was terribly glad to see you safe and well. He paused and looked at Frodo with suspicion. "Did you bring it here?" he whispered.
I cannot help being curious, after all I have heard. I long to see it again. Yes, I have it, Frodo replied, feeling strangely reluctant.
It is as always. Now I only wish to see it a little, Bilbo said. As Frodo prepared himself, he noticed that while he slept, the ring had been placed on a new, slender but sturdy chain around his neck. He slowly removed it. Bilbo reached out his hand, but Frodo quickly snatched the ring back. To his own shock and fear, he saw he was no longer looking at Bilbo.
A darkness seemed to fall between them, and yet he still saw a grimacing creature with a gaunt, searching face and bony arms.
He felt an urge to strike it. The music and singing around them seemed to halt, and a silence fell. Bilbo quickly looked at Frodo's face and raised his hand before his eyes. "Now I understand," he said.
"Put it away!" "I'm sorry. Sorry for letting you bear such a burden."
"Sorry for everything."
"Adventures, do they ever truly end?" "I think not."
"Some others must always bear the tale." "Well, it cannot be helped."
"I wonder if my book might end on a happy note."
"But do not worry now. Let us continue with the real news."
"Tell me all about the Shire."
Frodo hid the ring, and the darkness vanished almost entirely from memory. The light and music of Rivendell returned to him. Bilbo smiled and laughed loudly in joy. All the news from the Shire that Frodo could tell, augmented and corrected by Sam, was the most delightful to him, from the felling of the last tree by the youngest hobbit's pranks, They were so absorbed in the news from the forefarthing that they did not notice a figure in dark blue clothes approaching. He watched them with a smile for several minutes. Suddenly Frodo looked up.
"Ah, at last you have arrived, Dunedain,"
He called. "The Ranger!" Frodo exclaimed. "Seems you have many names." "Yes, the Ranger is one of the names you had not heard before," Bilbo said. "Why do you call him that?" "In Bree they call me so," the Ranger laughed, "and I was introduced as such to him." "And why do you call him Dunedain?" Frodo asked. "Mr. Dunedain," Bilbo said. "Here he is usually called that. But I think your Elvish language is sufficient for you to know that Dunedain means Western man, Númenorian. But now is not the time for language lessons." He turned to the Ranger. "Where have you been, my friend? Why did you not attend the feast?" "Lady Arwen was there." The Ranger looked down at Bilbo gravely. "I know," he said, "but I usually have to set aside merriment. Elladan and Elrohir returned from the wild unexpectedly, and I very much wished to hear their tale immediately." "Yes, my friend," Bilbo said. "Now that you have heard the news, can you spare a few moments to help me with something urgent?"
"Elrond says this song of mine must be finished before night ends, and I am stuck. Let us go into a corner and finish it."
The Ranger smiled.
"Come on," he said. "Let me hear it."
Frodo sat alone for a while, Sam having dozed off. He felt a little melancholy, though everyone in Rivendell had gathered for him. But those near him remained silent, listening intently to the music, paying no attention to anything else. Frodo began to listen. At first, the beauty of the melodies and the lyrics woven together in Elvish, even if he did not fully understand, enchanted him as he paid attention. The words seemed almost sculpted, and images of distant lands with shining wonders he had never imagined appeared before him. Then the firelight in the hall became a soft golden glow above, spilling over the edges of language. The enchantment gradually became dreamlike, until he felt a river of gold and silver flowing past him, countless patterns too many to grasp, and it became part of the air vibrating around him, soaking him and then overwhelming him. He quickly sank under its dazzling weight into the deep realm of sleep. There he wandered for a long while in a dream of music, turning into flowing water, until suddenly it transformed into a sound. It seemed the sound of Bilbo singing a hymn. At first the words were dim, then they became clearer. Edrindil was a mariner who journeyed far in the land of Avornion. He built a wooden raft to float at Nimbrithil, to drift along the stream. Upon the mast, shining in silver light woven from the glow of distant lamps, the prow of the ship, like a swan's wing, shone gracefully, the sombre mast raised high. His ancient and mighty armor of the imperial power of old he wore as a battle robe, all the old seals glimmering with stars, making wounds avoid the eyes of men. His bow gleamed like dragon horn, his name carved from ebony wood, his armor shone with silver radiance, his sword, hilt strong and enduring, the blade tempered steel, rare and true. His helm was strange and sturdy, plumes fluttering like a great eagle. Emeralds adorned his chest beneath the moon, shining with starlight. He roamed through many heights, south to north, over rapids and falls. The wild lands penned great deeds. The world below, desolate and barren. Before the narrow snow, dense and obscure. The night embraced icy hills, the endless hearth fire below. He turned away, still roaming free. Through waters distant by thousands, no stars shining,
no morning light. Then one day he arrived at the night of nothing.
A strange key, yet he saw nothing. No light, no form appeared.
Angry winds blew through his heart.
He rushed on in terror and frenzy. His steps lacked all peace, longing to return to the old home, to his old lands. But Elwing suddenly appeared, kindling a red fire through the mist. Brighter than 1,000 diamonds, gems flickered in her hands. The Silmaril for the hero shone, illuminating him with a radiant light. His brow regained its grandeur. The ship turned its prow, slicing the night over the sea, traversing leagues through the other world. Crossing many voyages, storms suddenly arose. Terminal invisible wielded might. On the earth few could witness, power surpassing mortal strength. His ship trembled and tore apart, as if death itself shimmered at one side. He sailed above the sea, from east beyond the west, then through Evernight, returning to dark flowing waters, seeking once more a strange land. Darkest night of the long hours, sunk deep to the ocean floor, before the days lingered in the world. Suddenly he heard the chime of falling gems, a music from the mortal realm resounding. Waves surged in foam, mountains silenced, miles of void. Light appeared clearly upon his pillow. Valinor with Eldamar shone afar across the empty sea. A lone traveller escaped the long night, passing the white harbour, to the elf home in a lonely land, the air clear and shimmering, like countless panes of crystal. The land lay in a steep valley, behind the lonely hill of Ilmarin. The towers of Tirion flamed brightly with myriad lights, reflected in the mystical black lake, detaining the wandering night. He stayed, unhurried, learning countless songs and endless tales, hearing stories of ancient times. The golden harps they gave him, garments of translucent white, for him to roam freely over leagues, Calasirian of the new land, until he reached it to know a hidden land of sorrow, castles surpassing the ages, light shining through countless years. Through ups and downs, here and there, the ancient king had ruled in the deep mountains.
What remains today? Ilmarin, clouds flying, winds swirling, countless things sent adrift.
No one could hear a word from those times of men and elves, scenes manifesting throughout the cosmos, allowing no one to dwell within. Then they gave him a new ship to sail 1,000 leagues, made by countless wonders from priceless elf glass.
Light blazing in all directions, no sails, no oars attached. Silmaril was the guiding lamp.
Shining bright by the ever-blessed Elbereth, she led the ship onward, creating wondrous wings for him, guiding him to the judgment plane, to the marvelously vast sky.
Moonlight bright, sunlight shining, Everin's high hills soaring,
where silver streams melted like waterfalls. He flew high with the heavenly light. Beyond the radiant mountain wall, from the end of the world he veered, seeking home once more, distant and wondrous, journeying through the dark and arduous night, bright stars shimmering gold, over vast mists, the sun far away. Glowing faint, dawn arose, wondrous as a marvel. Northern waters still flowing, he crossed the middle world, leagues beyond, finally hearing the echoes of weeping from ancient times resounding today. Countless maidens, countless days, sorrow left for the morrow until the moon faded quickly. A bright star streaked through the sky. Nothing remained of the far land, of the old lake once on the mortal plain, a warning over endless leagues. A goal without rest, the lamp never dimmed. Flammifer in the western region, the song ceased. Frodo opened his eyes and saw Bilbo sitting on a chair among a circle of listeners, smiling and clapping. "Better we should sing it again," an elf said. Bilbo stood and bowed. "You flatter me too much, Lindir," he said, "but repeating it all would tire me greatly." "For you it would not be too tiring," the elves laughed. "You never seem weary recounting your poems. But truly, we cannot answer your questions hearing it just once."
"How so?" Bilbo exclaimed.
"You cannot tell which part is mine and which part is Dunedain's? We cannot easily discern the difference between the two mortals," the elf replied. Nonsense, Lindir, Bilbo snorted. If you cannot distinguish between a man and a hobbit, your judgment is worse than I thought. They are as different as peas and apples. Perhaps,
A sheep must surely differ from another sheep, Lindir laughed.
or from the shepherd.
Mortals are not our concern.
We have other matters. I will not argue with you, Bilbo said. I am sleepy after too much music and singing. I will let you guess, if you like. He rose and went toward Frodo. Well, it is done, he said, in a low voice. Better than you expected. I'm rarely asked to sing twice. What do you think? I will try to guess, Frodo smiled. No need, Bilbo said. In truth, the entire song is my own composition, except that Aragorn insisted I use a green stone. He seemed to think it important.
I do not know why.
Otherwise, clearly he thought all else was beyond my understanding, and he said if I dared write poetry about Edrindil in Elrond's house, that was my choice.
I think he was right. I do not know, Frodo said. That seems to suit me, though I could not explain.
I was half asleep when you began, and it seemed to follow something I had dreamed. I did not understand what you truly meant until near the end. It is difficult to understand anything here until you experience it, Bilbo said. No hobbit has the elves' desire for music, poetry, and tales. They seem to love them as much as food, or more. They will likely continue a long while. Do you wish to move to a private place to talk? May we, Uncle? Frodo asked. Of course. This is a gathering for joy, not seriousness.
Come and go as you please, provided you make no noise. They rose and quietly withdrew into shadow, exiting through the door.
Sam did not follow. He had quickly fallen asleep with a smile on his face. Despite the joy of being with Bilbo, Frodo still felt regret as they passed through the Hall of Fire. Even as they crossed the threshold, a clear voice lifted in song, a Elbereth Gilthoniel, Silifren Penaminuriel o Menel Agla Elenath, Nacherid Palandunriel o Galadremin Enorath, Fanuilos, Le Linathon Nef Ayar, Sen Nef Ayaron. Frodo paused and looked back. Elrond sat in his chair, the fire upon his face like summer sunlight on treetops. Princess Arwen sat beside him. To his surprise, Frodo saw Aragorn standing next to her, his dark cloak falling, seemingly clad in elf armor, a shining star upon his chest. They conversed, and suddenly Frodo felt Arwen turn toward him, her eyes, light, shining down from afar, piercing into his heart. He remained entranced, while the sweet notes of the elvish song continued, like crystal chimes blending words and melody. It is a song to Elbereth, Bilbo said. They sing thus and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Come, he led Frodo back into his small room. It opened onto gardens looking south across the Bruinen Gorge. They sat there for a while, gazing through the window at the bright stars above the rising forest, speaking softly. They no longer spoke of trivial news from distant Shire, nor of dark shadows and surrounding dangers, but of the good they had seen together in the world, of the elves, of stars, of trees, of the gentle, beautiful years in the forests. Finally, a knock sounded at the door. "Excuse me," Sam said, peeking in, "but I did not know if you wished for anything more."